What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Dog Benfica podcast. Tonight, episode 221, Alfredo, Steve Santos, and Cristiano Oliveira. What's going on, Cristiano Oliveira?
What's going on, guys? How you guys doing today?
Steve Santos. Yep, I feel you. Caralho, ainda agora começou, já tá tudo fodido. Anyway, we have hopefully a short show for you tonight. We got only one game to discuss, and what a big game it was. That clásico at the Dragão between Benfica and Porto happened this weekend, and I'm sure that you guys all know what happened, but we'll get started by, let's check in with Steve. Steve, you with us?
I'm here.
Bro. Trump stepped on your internet?
Steve, it's cutting in and out a little.
Steve pulled a peasy. The limelight is on him. Desapareceu.
Anyway, all right. Let's. Like I said, we have a brief show for you tonight. A brief. When I say brief, I mean that in topics. We don't have much to talk about as far as topics. We only got the Clásico. So let's get that started. I'll give you the lineup real quick, and then we'll get into to the talk. Ederson was in goal. Semedo, Luizão, Lindelof, and Eliseu across the back. Samaris and Pizzi in the middle. Salvio, Gedge, and Mitroglou. And Steve, this was the exact lineup that we had predicted pre-game with Faces being hurt. I don't think we knew that Grimaldo was going to be hurt, but so Eliseu was just his natural substitution. But Steve, not much different from what we thought.
No, it's just a shame that of the two players where we have the biggest drop off in quality for the second string or the substitute are the two guys that we're missing. I mean, Grimaldo to Eliseu is huge, and Feza to Samaris is huge too. And that's not even just making excuses; it's just stating facts. I mean, of the two guys that we were missing, those are the ones where the second string is much below their first string level, unlike other positions that we have.
All right, Cristiano, let's talk about the approach. The approach to this game. I myself believe that the approach was going to be one that we really weren't going to change much of the team to play this Porto. We were just going to go there with the style. Did you think there was going to be a different approach by Rui Vitoria?
No, absolutely not. I mean, Benfica, has been winning games pretty easily, regardless of competition, and there was no reason to change anything. Like we talked about on last week's pod. I expected a win, but at the same time, I thought all the pressure was on Futebol Clube de Porto. A draw would have been a very good result for Benfica due to the fact that they're playing tough opposition on the road. And so really not many changes needed. Like Steve said, unfortunately, positions that our backups are probably the worst at the how do I put it? Not the backups, but I want to say that position is the weakest on the team as far as backups go. And unfortunately, we weren't healthy. We're missing Jonas, our best striker. Rafa arguably would be our best winger, our best left back, our best center back, and Jardel definitely a guy that can start on any of the big three teams. So, but not surprised by anything. I mean, there's not much to change, man. We use the term over and over, which is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And he got exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, Steve. Let me ask you this: we knew that Porto was going to come at us. After all, they were 5 points behind. They were playing at home. They were riding a little bit of the momentum that they built up against Club Brugge, and nothing unexpected from Porto. What did you see from Porto in the first half? Anything that surprised you, or did you really expect what we saw?
I expected Porto on the front foot. I expected them to have more of the ball. They're at home. Like Chris said, the pressure's on them. They have to bring the game to us as the home team. But I didn't expect them to line up the way they did, nor to have the tactics that they had in place that they did. I was expecting a Porto that would be in a little bit more of a hurry to push the ball forward, a little bit more direct, something more like what Nuno Espírito Santo's Valencia was like. But in what we actually saw on Sunday was a team that was really built on trying to keep the ball and gain numerical superiority in almost every area of the pitch. And when I say that, I mean even in build-up. I mean even further up the pitch where they had both fullbacks pushed up really, really high. They didn't play with a number 8 per se. They played with a 6 and a 10. I mean, you have Danilo, who's a like out and out destroyer, can't really play much football outside of destroying, and you have a guy playing in front of him, Octavio, who is a proper 10, I would say. I mean, definitely a more creative type player. Add Oliver to the mix, coming in from the flank and making a third man in midfield where we always only had 2, and the positioning of Octavio being so far up the pitch really caused us a lot of problems too, because it kept Pizzi and Samaris really far back, right on top of the back line, and gave Octavio and Oliver a lot of room to grab the ball in front of those 2 lines. And with guys with creative players like that, with the feet that they have, they caused us a lot of problems. And the rare time that we were able to get the ball back, we really couldn't get out either. We just didn't have the outlet ball. We didn't have the pause, the calmness of mind to make the ball work for you so that we didn't lose it again. But it was a first half to forget. I mean, that I don't think we've struggled so much in any match, not against anybody so far this season, like we did in that first half.
I think Porto went out there and played to their strengths and played, to exactly what Espírito Santo wanted. I just don't think that this is a very good Football Club do Porto team. I mean, this is not even close to them strong Porto teams that we're accustomed to seeing, and they definitely had their chances. They dominated. Adrian Silva had that. Andre. I keep getting those names. It's like Alfredo with Zenit and Kiev. The same thing with the Adrian guys. He had that one chance, that ricochet, and he got the one time. I mean, they had their chances. I just don't think this is a very good Football Club Porto team. And Steve, to your point that hesitant at times, I think that they know that they're not that very good of a team, and so they had to sit back because Benfica could counter with the best of them, at least in Portugal.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I didn't really find that they sat back. I thought they really pinned us in. They were, anytime that we did win the ball back, they were very quick to press us back and make sure we lost the ball and we couldn't create attacks. If anything, I was surprised at how far forward and how big the gap was from the defensive 3, the Nilu and the 2 center backs, and the attacking 7, I guess, really, because they really pushed both Maxi and Telish very far up the pitch, that in turn brought Salvio and Servi a lot of trouble, because I don't think they had the right, I don't know if it's the right routines or maybe the right instructions on what to do when both of them are pinned that far back like that. And there was constant occasions where, based on where Tellus was showing up, he would basically pin both Semedo and Salvio to the flank, allowing Oliver to come in and receive the ball in space. And if you remember one beautiful pass that Oliver puts in behind the back line, I believe it's for Jota. I'm not 100% sure if it was Jota or Silva at this point, where Ederson comes out and basically intercepts the play. That's the type of movements that, when you have creative players like that, you have to find a way to protect yourself better. And Benfica really struggled at doing that. I mean, with Samaris there instead of Fesa, you're never going to be as comfortable defending as we were before. But there was definitely an element of surprise, I think, of the way Porto approached the game. I don't think Benfica was prepared to. They were prepared to defend, but not
but Steve,
that much.
That's what I think. I think Vitoria went there. No, obviously he's going to say all the right things in front of a camera, but I think he went there content with, hey, we get a draw out of this. We're still 5 points up on them. If Sporting wins, we're still 5 points up on them. We'll take it. I mean, it was a huge swing. You could go, Benfica at one point was.
Yeah, that doesn't work out too well when you're talking. You mute yourself. He's gone. Anyway, to me, there's a couple factors in this first half, obviously, and that conditioned the way that Benfica played. One was obviously the absence of Fesa. Without having Fesa there, who knows the routines, playing with those guys, knowing the routines. Samaris is not well routined, and it means well. I don't think he had a very bad game from what he's accustomed us to seeing recently, but I thought that Benfica struggled to close down some of those passing lanes that Porto was hurting us with. The mismatches in the midfield with, like you said, Otavio and Oliver doubling up on Pizzi and Samaris. I thought that was a huge factor for us, against us, actually. And I thought that early, I thought that hurt us a lot because even though Luizão has been playing well and he's done well for us so far, I think that his presence is in his organization skills, as we have mentioned, is something that we can't undervalue. And I think missing Luizão, and he was substituted in the 17th minute with looks like some kind of a twist in his knee, from what I understand. Missing Luizão to organize the players in front of him, I thought there was another thing that went against us. So not only Face's absence, but also Luizão's lack of leadership and organization skills, positioning guys in the passing lanes and positioning guys here and there, making small adjustments. I thought that worked against us in that first half.
For sure. And losing Luizão, we lose a little bit of that composure that he brings you. I mean, to have a guy that's constantly putting you in the right spot, you feel a little bit more at ease. You're making a little bit less decisions on your own, and maybe when you get the ball, you're not so gassed and trying to go at 100 miles an hour like Salvio and Servio were. So there is that element as well.
Yeah. So you got a Porto that's pressing high. You got a Porto that's trying to isolate or really put a stop to the build-up, trying to isolate both Servi and Salvio on the wings, as well as Mitroglou. And you got a Porto that, and Steve, you pointed this out to me, you got a Porto that's defending Gonçalo Guedes, which could be an outlet for our transition very well. That Gonçalo Guedes struggled to get on the ball and to make anything happen in the first half because Porto was defending so well against them and isolating the other two guys. So it was it was a good setup, I think, for Porto. Of course, when you play that fast and with that high of a pressure, you open yourself to being gassed out in the second half. But it was the right idea from Nuno Espírito Santo in limiting what Benfica did. And Benfica, look, we're not trying to sugarcoat anything. Benfica struggled in that first half, and everybody saw it. And as Steve has mentioned, perhaps the worst first half that Benfica has had all season against Porto. And look, if you're a Benfica fan, you want your team to behave a certain way. You want Benfica to always play to win, to come out aggressive. But this is a game, and as Cristiano has mentioned, you lose the game, you tie the game, you're still in first place. Tie a game it gets you still leaves you with 5 points ahead of Porto and 5 points ahead of Sporting. But I don't think that perhaps the fans didn't expect Benfica to be so defensive, or should we be giving credit to Porto for lining up the way they did?
I think there's a lot of credit for Porto, as much as I don't like to say it. I mean, we said before on the podcast last week that we shouldn't really change our approach, shouldn't really change our 11. We didn't. The same two-man midfield, the same players on the wings. Basically, the lineup was the same, just plugging in the injured guys with their replacements. The fact that we weren't able to play the same way that we would want to is just a product of what happened in the game. I mean, you're at away side, so you're only going to play the moments that you get the ball, which is normal per se. I didn't expect us to go there. I wanted us to go there and steamroller them, but they had other plans, and you have to give them credit for that, because they imposed themselves on us, and we weren't able to impose ourselves on them. And that's the way the game worked out. I don't think that Rui Vitoria had the initial game plan that he was going to go in there playing for a tie. Yes, a tie was always not a bad result, but I don't think that was his intention. Not with the lineup he played. He played the same lineup he's always played. If he had stuck another man in midfield and played Horta from the beginning, like he made the change in the second half, you might get that impression. But based on the lineup he chose, you can't think that his first intention was the tie.
Yeah, so Cristiano, Benfica goes into the half having struggled, going into the locker room with Porto dominating. If you're Rui Vitoria, what do you tell the team at halftime?
That all depends on what his message going into the game was, guys. I mean, like I was saying before, if he was just content with walking out of there with the 5-point lead, at halftime, just telling the guys, look, we survived 45 minutes. We got 45 more. And let's keep doing exactly what we're doing. As long as they don't score, we walk out of here with a 5-point lead, and we're still, in command of the campeonato. We're still the leaders, and so it all depends, man. If not, obviously he's telling the guys to get more aggressive. He wants Benfica to have a little bit more possession and spread the ball around more and try to create. Because in that first half, aside from the first minute or minute and a half, Benfica did absolutely nothing after that.
Yeah. But, I mean, Steve, sooner or later, you kind of figured that this Porto was going to get gassed out, and they came out the same way. They scored early, and in contrast to what we saw at the Dragão last season, where Porto scored very late and didn't really give a chance for Benfica to react, scoring a goal in the 50th minute or allowing a goal in the 50th minute is something that allows to respond, and Benfica did respond.
Oh, for sure. I forgot to write down the minute of the Andre Horta for Servi change, but
59.
That's 59th.
Yep.
That's when the game started to tilt slightly in our favor. I'm not going to say we dominated from there on end, but we had a say. In the first half, there was no outlet ball. There was no time for us to get up the pitch. When Andre Horta comes in, you get another player who's more, I don't want to say Salvio and Servi are uncomfortable on the ball, but they have a slight bit of like a tunnel vision. I mean, both of them get the ball, and their main intention is to beat first guy in front of them and see what comes next. With Pizzi, with Horta, you have players that have that pause. They know that they're probably better off to try to hold the ball and wait for support and allow Semedo to come into the game, allow LiLo to come into the game instead of going right away 1v1 against their opponent. They also, by bringing in Horta, you have a guy who can pass the ball a little bit better, a guy whose touch, it might not be as good as Servi's, but his first touch has a different intention. Like I said before, it's more to bring in other teammates instead of trying to go at it on his own. And to be honest, with Servi didn't have a good match, so it was always going to be an improvement as soon as you brought on a player with a different mindset.
That was a great sub, because it inserted another player into the middle of the field to clock things up, and all of a sudden Benfica, I don't want to say like Steve said, just a minute ago also, that it's not that they bossed the game around, but they had a say. And now with another guy in the middle, they could get things under control a little bit more. And I thought that was a smart sub. And I thought it definitely, it's not that they started playing drastically better, but you could tell the game tilted a little bit. Because at one time it was just going straight one way, which was Football Club Porto. And before we go on, guys, I know you mentioned if he gives up a goal in the 50th minute, whatever it was, and I mean, I love the kid. He's easily becoming one of my favorite young goalkeepers in the world. Love the kid. I think he's an absolute future stud. But that was a terrible goal. Terrible on his part. I mean,
I have to agree.
You speak to goalkeepers. And trust me, I've done my homework. I've spoken to a couple. But you speak to any goalkeeper on any other. Forget this goal. Taking this goal aside, you speak about goalkeeping. And every goalkeeper will tell you, anytime you get beaten near post, 99% of the time, it's your fault. And in this time, that's a save. Speaking of multiple goalies throughout the day today, guys, that's a save in every single one of them. Not in the same conversation, speaking to them separately. They all said the same thing. That's a save that he has to make, like a kick save, rather than go down with his hands and get. He should have tried to kick it out, you know, at least reach out with his leg. And that was a bad beat. And that's, you know, one of the few mistakes he's made. But that was could have been a very costly mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to agree on that. I thought that him getting beaten in a near post on a space that he could have very well saved with his foot, not having gone down because it's such a small space. I thought there was the one flaw that Ederson had. I don't know, Steve.
I almost want to agree with you guys, but that shot being disguised where 95% of the outcome of that play on your wrong foot is a cross of some sort, and then that shot being nearly inch perfect and driven. I'm not going to say he has zero fault in it, but I think,
Steve, you're being kind.
I'm a little bit on the fence about it, man. I can't completely fault the guy because 9 out of 10 keepers probably would have read that game situation the same way. And that shot is driven.
Nelson played it perfectly, drove him to the outside. Perfect. He's got it. He's got it. Listen, his job.
He's got no angle.
He can't get beat near post. End of story.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm with you on that. Expecting to get beat near post, which is why he's cheating for the cross. Is what my argument is. I'm not saying that he has no fault, but it is a near perfect storm. I mean, the guy is on his wrong foot. You're expecting a cross, and then he drives it from a very acute angle and puts it basically in the only spot that it would go in the net. Yeah. On that angle.
Well, I mean,
it goes there.
I'm not saying, fair enough.
I'm not saying that he couldn't, that Ederson couldn't have read it in a different way, but you can understand what Ederson's thought process is when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, Steve, but I still think that's a very tight. I think that it's a very tight angle for him not to make that save. I understand that he's cheating and he's expecting the cross, wrong foot by Jota, and in a very tight angle, maybe he's expecting the cross. I could see that, but I still think that the amount of space that was between him and the post, I thought that there was a save that he could have done. And I mean, I've seen him do those saves and much harder saves throughout his career at Benfica. So I was surprised that he let that one in. But then going into that play and seeing what he had saved so far, you can't really get down on the guy, as he kept us in the game for at least for that first half. He kept us in the game with very close saves on both Jota, on both Corona. So you can't really get down on a guy for allowing a goal like that. Still, like Chris said, getting beat at the near post is always something that 90% of the time is going to be the goalie's fault. So
I thought Nelson played it perfectly, man. And I don't mean to be repetitive, and I see what Steve's trying to say, but the way that Nelson played it, the way he played it and forced him to the outside, in order for him to get the ball across, it was going to be very hard because Nelson, I think if he would have brought it in, like if he would have tried to cross, Nelson would have been there to block it. The only option he had was really to go.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know. Chris keeps dropping out. Anyway, I wanted to get back to Horta and just to add a few things to the comments that you already had. You guys had mentioned. I think that Horta coming into the midfield, he's a guy that's another set of feet that the ball can get to. He's a guy that also, because of the nature of his game, now all of a sudden you could play short passes, combinations, hold the ball, longer string more passes together. It's also a guy that, because they're playing in short spaces, that it's a higher percentage pass than it is to hit it deep or hit it for Gedge to run onto it or hit it to Salvio for him to try to take people on. I thought that Horta's inclusion in the game was the perfect move by Vitoria. I don't want to say that maybe he should have played that way to begin the game, because then we would have been changing too much of the chemistry of the team. And as Cristiano says, if it's not broken, don't fix. So I don't think that Rui Vitoria should have gone with him from the start. But this is what the game needed. Rui Vitoria read the game, and he was able to make the change, and the change was significant into the way Benfica was playing. Then all of a sudden, you got a Benfica that's controlling the ball, that's holding the possession. Look, as long as you're holding possession, you're not really getting exposed in the back. And I thought that was a great move by Benfica and Rui Vitoria. So, and it's good to see Andre Horta come into games like this, because he's a Benfiquista through and through, and he's a guy that is going to go out there. And I'm not saying that the other guys don't do this, but he's going to eat the grass. The proverbial is going to eat the grass to make sure that he does everything that he could do to give this team his contribution and to help this team win.
Yeah, another factor that I think allowed us to, again, not boss the game or be in complete control, but for Porto to lose a little bit of what they had going in the first half. I mean, to take off Oliver 70th minute, I think it is, 72nd, something like that, it seemed like a huge mistake for Espírito Santo at that moment. He was one of the real difference makers on the side, and I think he thought he had the 1-0 and he was going to try to tighten things up, but it didn't end up working out for him, because by losing Oliver, he lost one more player that had what Horta brought for us, that little bit of pause, that guy who can put his foot on the ball and calm things down and keep Porto in possession and keep them ticking. When he makes the change, he loses that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Benfica kept at it, and sure enough, in the dying minutes of the game, we get a thoughtless play by Herrera, who is perhaps trying to get in good with the fans by trying to kick the ball against a Benfica player violently. I don't even know why he was kicking it that way, but as it turns out, Pizzi jumped out of the way and the ball ended up in the corner. Pizzi plays the ball, and Horta gets the ball. I don't know if it was a lapse of concentration by Porto, but there's no one in the vicinity of Horta, even at the distance that you're supposed to stay at a corner. There's no one in that distance. Horta is able to get the ball. Breck looks up right on his right foot and sends a cross unchallenged by a Porto player. And Lisandro Lopes, who would come in for Luizão and who had a good game defensively for Benfica, just puts the ball away from Casillas in the 92nd minute.
If you look at that play, Horta stuttered. He tried to give the ball back to Pizzi, but Porto did a good job in recovering because, like you said, there was nobody really there around Horta once Pizzi took the corner. And then he had no other choice but to cross it. And so luckily it worked out in our favor. And we were able to get the equalizer. Yeah.
And, we throughout history, I think that we were haunted one season by that late Kelvin goal. And look, I think that these type of results, especially playing at home and having played the way they did throughout most of the game, allowing a goal that late, it's heartbreaking. And I'll be curious to see what kind of consequences this type of result has on Porto, because Porto really thought they had the 3 points in the bag, and Benfica snuck one in, similar to what we saw at Alvalade, not last year, right, Steve? That Jardel grabbed the equalizer? Or the winner.
That was the
winner, right?
No, it was the equalizer. It was the equalizer.
Mitroglou was the winner last year. Jardel was the equalizer with JJ the year before.
Yes. You're absolutely right. But those are heartbreaking when you've dominated the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
And you think you're going to get away with it, or you think you're scotch-free, and then all of a sudden you allow that goal in your house when you had been playing much better than Benfica. And overall, I thought that Porto was better than Benfica. And I think that everybody that was watching the game thought that Porto was better. But it just goes to show the resiliency of this Benfica team that never really backed down, regardless of whether they're playing well or not. This team manages to find a way to get on the board, score the goals that they need to. And look, I think that a win would have been better, but you get it. Like Cristiano said, you come out of the Dragão with the same points advantage on Porto, and you gave up 2 points to Sporting. Hey, I'm okay with that.
yeah, there can't be any complaints, especially not the way we won it at the end. Um, I just want to touch on something. Lisandro was phenomenal in that match. I mean, the way the game ended up being with a lot of like 1v1 challenges, a lot of last ditch defending, it probably wouldn't have ended up suiting Luizão. You can also play the argument that if Luizão was there, it might have had a different outcome. But the way the game ended up playing itself out, Lisandro was a very, very valuable substitute for Luizão.
Yeah. Cristiano.
Lisandro is a beast, man. But with this Benfica, as Benfiquista fans, we're all spoiled because we have 4 very, very good centrais that could play anywhere on any team that could start on at least any of the big 3 teams in Portugal. And we kind of forget about Lisandro. But Lisandro, I think on another team, he'd be an absolute stud. So I've always liked him, and it's good to see him come off the bench and make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So the least of the worst results for Benfica, and we come out of the Dragão, and it was good, man. And it especially felt good to be able to tie the game that late. When you see Porto jerseys all the time with that 92 number to remind us of that moment that brought JJ to his knees. And now it might have not been a win, but I think that it hurts. It hurts this Porto team.
It's not even a comparison, though, man.
No, it's not a comparison.
That broke your heart last second, took your soul away. This was more of, we had a chance. We're back in this 2 points behind. We got a lead to back to realization that, you know what, man, we still got a very long road ahead of us.
No, definitely.
Before is definitely a stunner, though. That Kelvin goal. I mean, it's something that, and I'm not even trying to be funny, but it's something that I believe JJ still has nightmares about, man. I mean, he can't. That's something that doesn't leave you.
Cristiano, I'll just I'll let you have the last word, because last week we had a conversation in which we were talking about Benfica, and Benfica had played a bunch of mancos, and this is their real test. How do you think Benfica did?
I mean, still not sold, man. I know a lot of people are critical on Twitter and everything, and everybody's absolutely right. It's by beating these lesser teams, these weaker teams that the Campeonato was won, and nobody's saying any different. But I just can't get on the same high horse as everyone else and sit there and start praising, so-and-so for playing well against these lesser teams. I mean, these are the games that matter. These are the games that legends are made of, that legends are made from, playing in these Clássicos, playing in big European nights. It's not playing against the lesser teams in Portugal that stars are made. And that's all I'm saying. And it's like, some people maybe misunderstand me as knocking the team. I'm not knocking the team. I never root against Benfica. I'd rather look like an ass than be right at times. You know what I mean? I hope Benfica proves me wrong. But it's just, I have to call a spade a spade. And everybody was all pleased and giddy about the performances of Benfica against, the Bluenenses of the world. And I was just like, yo, I want to see the big test. And now I can still stand and say they played one quality team in Napoli and lost. And now the second best team they've played, they got their asses kicked in the first half. And we're very lucky to get out of there with a draw. And so I stick by what I say, that as good as Benfica has looked, this is still not a very good Benfica team. And it's still not a very good performances from players and coaching staff, because as good as Vitoria has been, guys, let's be honest, lost twice last year to Porto, lost to Sporting, got a win against now a draw. His record against the big guys, against his direct rivals, is not a very good record.
Yeah, but Cristiano, you also got to realize you're missing a lot of guys that otherwise will be starting.
Understood, but I'm not. That's why I'm not knocking this performance this weekend. That's why I'm not sitting here and going crazy that Benfica should have gone forward. And I think I've stated multiple times that I thought that maybe it was his game plan. I thought he would have been content with walking out of there with a 5-point lead. I'm not being critical. You know what I mean? But yeah, I can't sit there and still go Gugu Gaga against the Marítimos of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Cristiano, here's one from Sergio Jaforst. Do you think there's a mental block when it comes to playing at the Dragão?
Yeah, I mean, listen, anytime you go out and play your rivals, I don't know if it's a mental rap, but it's always it's a different feeling. The atmosphere, the intensity, everything gets ramped up, man. And this is a place that Benfica has not been very successful over the years. Yes, they had a tremendous 2-0 victory, and Lima scored both goals. But even that performance wasn't a great performance. The result was a great result, but not a great performance. And this is their, this is their voodoo team. This is the team that they've, over the last 20 years, man, that, Sporting is a tremendous rival, but that's a city rival. And I hate the fact, and let's get this straight, guys, please. All right, stop with the clássicos. The clássicos, Futebol Clube Porto, Benfica. It's not Benfica Sporting. That's a derby. It ain't Sporting Porto. That's some other big game. Clássico is only one clássico in Porto. That's Benfica Porto, Porto Benfica. Want to get that out the way.
Yeah. Here's another one from Jafostu. For you, Steve. We can speculate the result had Rafa, Jonas, Face, and Grimaldo and Jardel been fit. Does this prove that our depth is superior to the other two teams?
I think if we had won the game and had a very convincing showing, that would be the case. Given the way the game panned out, and I don't think anybody would argue the fact that we were lucky to draw. I don't think we could have that that outlook that based on this match we have the deepest squad. I think regardless of what happened today, we probably still do have the deepest squad, but not based on what happened on the weekend, if that makes any sense. I still think that player for player, 25-man roster, we probably have the best players. But watching the game that we did on the weekend, there was no proof in that.
Yeah, this weekend's result had nothing to do on the depth of the team, guys. I mean, Benfica is going to be deep regardless whether they lost or won this game. They're still going to be a very deep squad because, as we mentioned before, we have 5 very key players missing, and we
still competed.
Exactly, absolutely. So it's a very deep team. I think it's one of the deepest teams we've had in years, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Cristiano, here's one from Josh Fust. He sent a bunch of questions early this morning because he wasn't able to watch live. And 2014-15, we were first as the 5th round. Last year, we were only first in the 25th round. What's harder, in your opinion, to be chased or to be the chaser?
That's a great question. I think what's harder to be chased, because when you're the chase, you got no pressure on you, man. You just go out there and balls to the, how does it go? Pedal to the metal, balls to the metal, whatever it's and
balls to the wall.
Balls to the wall is close. You just go out there, put your best foot forward, and get the best result possible. When you're in front for so long, you have the pressure. It depends also on the lead, man. If it's 2-point lead, like if Benfica now with a 5-point lead going into the dragao, it was pressure there because it's a main rival and playing in a big stage. But again, at the end of the day, if they lost, like we've stated here multiple times, they've still been in first place. So it's different pressures, guys.
Yeah. Here's one from Christopher at Tuga_2. If Luizão can't recover in time for the next game, who gets called up? Ruben Dias or Calaisa? I think neither one of those guys. I think that LiLo will get his start. And I think they've already said Luizão's out 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that Jardel is out of the clinical bulletin, so he'll be probably in shape to play on the 19th, which is when we play Marítimo for the Portuguese Cup. I think that Ruben Dias and Calaisa is going to remain with the B team.
I'm afraid they're going to have to bring one up because as things stand right now, I know there's an international break, but they only have 2 healthy guys right now as we speak. So they're going to have to bring one of those kids up because I don't think there's any guarantees Jardel is healthy. Or not that he's healthy, but at least that he'll be healthy by then. And this guy hasn't played in a long time. So I think one of those kids will definitely get called up. One of them will definitely, get the practice reps. Now, it's a matter.
I don't know about definitely.
No, I think so, man. I do because you need multiple.
You could say there's a chance. I guess you could say there's a chance.
No, I think it's better than a chance. I think they do. They
had a 90% chance of the second half. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it's a definite. I don't think.
The latest thing I read is that we're expecting most of, if not all of our injured players back by end of the month. I think that's where
Yeah,
you
absolutely. I think
think
that's the key. If Jardel's back, no,
if Jardel's back,
no.
you might see one of them sneak into the
Practice.
22 or 20 whatever man roster, but doesn't make the actual 18 man one for the match. But I don't. I think it's if Jardel's around, you don't waste putting a second center back on the game day roster.
Steven, that's exactly what I was saying. I'm not talking about getting called up to the game day roster. I'm talking about getting called up and getting the practice reps, as I stated. I think one of them.
That's different.
Well, but that's what I'm talking about. Getting called up.
Get called
That's
up
what I
to the
thought you were
game.
talking about. No, the game. It all
Getting called up
depends.
to the game.
If Jardel's healthy, no. But if Jardel's health is not healthy, absolutely, you need a third center back.
Yeah, the guys get called up to the roster, to the practice squad. I get it. Cristiano, here's one for you. Of the big three in Portugal, who would Trump cheer for, and who would Clinton cheer for? This is from Lino, from Neil's brother, Lino Fernandes.
Trump would cheer for Sporting. If you guys know anything about the history of either of the clubs, you'd understand the where Sporting comes from, where their history comes from. So absolutely, Sporting Trump would be a Sportingista, and Clinton would be a Benfiquista, man. O Clube do Povo.
No, I thought Trump was people's president.
No, that's maluco, man.
All right, let's see what else we got. We're already in the questions, just in case you're wondering. Steve, My Golf Adventures Mo is asking, do you think Rui Vitoria has different game plans in the Clássicos?
Do I think he does? Not exactly. Do I think he might have to or should? Yes, I think given his record against Porto and Sporting, he's got to do something to better it. Really, we've not had many convincing or dominating performances against Porto or Sporting since he's come into charge, regardless of whether we were champions or not. So he might have to rethink his approach for these games.
Yeah, here's one for you from Mo. Cristiano, your thoughts on Pizzi solidifying the midfield these last few games?
I don't think he solidified anything according to what I saw this weekend.
There you go, Mo.
Pizzi, man, like Pizzi is a nice player to have on your team, especially in the Portuguese league. But look, it's going to be hard to get me on the bandwagon, guys.
All right. Here's what. Well, I'll leave this one for the end because it's not really related. Here's one from Daniel Infant. Given our performance at the Dragão, in Face's absence, do you play 4-3-3 against better teams, say Samaris, Pizzi, and Horta? What do you think, Steve?
I'll have to say I'm not against it at all. It's something that we've been calling for even back in the JJ days to play with a third guy, a proper third midfielder instead of a winger who pinches in and a winger who makes the third midfielder. It is something, though, that against a good portion of the league, you don't need that guy, and it's hard to create the routines you need to be able to play in the Clássicos and the derbies with the extra guy and make it work. I think it almost has to be your number one plan before it becomes an option for the Clássicos. And I know I just said he needs to change something about it, but I don't think it's just the third midfielder that is the approach change that we need.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he has, as long as he has Facer back, I think he sticks with what he has, especially with Pizzi in the middle. Against stronger teams, I don't know, depending who it is. He might turn out to play that way against Napoli at home.
Yeah, he might. I think there's routines that need to be created more with the outside guys, and even Gedge is starting to get it a lot, actually, in the defensive phase and where he has to be to stop other teams from playing. But more, you need some more thinking out of Servi and Salvio and where to place themselves to help protect Benfica, more so than you need a third man like a 4-3-3 with a triangle in midfield, because that's not something you're going to need day to day, and that's not what Rui Vitoria has showed that how he wants to play. So I think the approach is more getting Servi in particular in a different mind state, in a way where he has to realize what the team needs and when it needs it more often than he does right now.
Right. Here's one from Eric Vesper. Can Samari still regain his old form? He hasn't played like a 10 million player in a long time. Eric, I think that's a 10 million question altogether. If I knew the answer to that, I'd be glad to give you. We really don't know Maris, to be honest with you. I think there was some rumors that he might be leaving over the winter to Turkey or even Greece, but I'm not really sure. But unrecognizable, this Samaris.
That's still one of the greatest mysteries we have. I mean, there's obviously some of it has to lie with JJ, and we've said this before, but in the 6 months that Samaris was playing six with us with JJ, he was head and shoulders above Fesa, and now he seems like a shadow of himself. So take what you will from that. So there's potential to be the same player he was before. Does he have the right references and stimulants and right teachings from Rui Vitoria to get there again? We don't know, but the player's there. It doesn't disappear overnight.
Yeah. Here's one last question. This one's from Justin Mendes, and it's for all of us. Off the topic question, but if you could bring back one player sold over the last 5 years, who would it be? Cristiano, start with you.
On the spot. Wow.
Over the last 5?
Yeah. Who would you bring back? A player that we sold over the last 5 years that you thought would fit like a glove on this team?
Probably Matic.
Yeah, good shout. Steve?
Witsel. I just think he would really, playing with Fesa and Witsel would just like button up the midfield really, really well. Matic is a good shout, but you use Matic, so I think my first choice would have been him because I was always a big fan, but Witsel would really button up the midfield for us.
Yeah, and Witsel is a proper 8.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Bernardo just for the obvious reasons, I think.
How did I forget that?
I was hoping you wouldn't say, well, I thought you were actually going to say the same thing as I did. But yeah, Bernardo, just because of not only he is a very talented player, but he's just like the same way that Horta feels the club. And I think that to have a player of his caliber and the way he feels the club, I think that would be immense for Benfica.
Here's a question. Has David Luiz left? Has it been 5 years?
Do you want David Luiz back?
That was my second question.
Listen, I love the guy. The guy's having a spectacular season at Chelsea this year. They brought him back. They're playing him in a 3-4-3. I mean, I don't know what's there to knock. I mean, I love the guy. I think he's a fantastic player. Do I think he's the best in the world? No, but in order to be my favorite player, you don't have to be the best in the world. He's my favorite player out there today.
I've only seen one highlight clip from David Luiz, the one that he lands on his face.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this much. For those of you,
he's been playing really well. Supposedly, I've been watching the Premier League.
For those of you on the crack, he's been fantastic under Conte so far.
I don't think. I think David Luiz is a little too prone for mistakes. If I had to choose a center back I'd want it back, it would be Garay at this moment. But that's just me.
He's good to play against the scrubs in our league, right?
Now, David Luiz is a way better player than Garay. A lot more mobile. I mean, listen, it is what it is. You asked me. I'm giving you my opinion.
No, fair. David Luiz has a lot more tools, but he's missing something upstairs sometimes, and I don't think Garay.
you talk. You know, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you something about David Luiz. I'm pretty sure you guys know, but probably you forgot because you guys sit here and rave about the Bernardo.
He loves Jesus.
Yes, he's a big Benfica. He wants to come back and play for us, but he's not the only one who's ever said that.
The fact that he said it. He said it publicly. He said it if football was just passion, it wasn't about money, he would never leave Benfica. And I admire guys for saying like that, because he's gone into some big teams. And usually when guys, you get an Enzo Perez, for example, who leaves Benfica and goes to Valencia and says, wow, it's my dream to play in the big team. I mean, I find that disrespectful. You're talking about a guy that goes to big teams throughout Europe, and he still voices his love for Benfica, you know? And I admire that in a player.
Fair enough, Chris. All right, that's all we got. Let's wrap this up. 50 minutes in. I told you it was going to be a short one. It's definitely not going to be 92 minutes long for sure. Like we had 2 minutes, two pods ago. All right. Thank you very much for checking us out. I'm still up in the air next week. We have international break to whether or not we're going to do a podcast. Let's see what happens, see how we feel. Thank you very much for checking us out. Cristiano is on Twitter. You can find him at 10CO10. You can find Mr. Steve Santos at Steve Santos 6. At Benfica Podcast is where you could find the podcast Twitter. planetbenfica.co.uk. Don't forget to visit their site for all the articles and everything about Benfica. And I think that's all I got. Benfica.com. BenficaPodcast.com. We should go there. And now we got an international break, and I hope that we get some guys back healthy and back to playing, especially Jonas and Rafa, because we're probably going to need to be able to cement this lead, this 5-point lead that we got. Because, 7-point lead was nice, but 5-point lead is a little tight, being that we still have to play Sporting twice, and it comes up in a matter of, a month, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it's early December. No, I don't have the exact date in front of me at the moment.
That's it. Cristiano, any parting thoughts?
Yeah. Not much, buddy.
Yeah, we also forgot to announce the winner of the contest. I promise that we'll do that on the next podcast. We received a few emails, so very few to choose from. So we'll announce the winner on next podcast. Steve, have a good one. Any parting thoughts?
No, I think we have to look forward and pray that we have not pray, but you really want to see, like you said earlier, the Jonas, the Rafa back. The international break, they say, is going to bring them back. So let's hope that's the case and no more extensions to injuries like Jonas's before.
All right. See you, everybody. Thank you very much for checking us out. Catch us on iTunes and take us everywhere. If you're doing chores, ironing clothes, cooking dinner, whatever, you could put us on your headphones. Thanks. Talk to you next time. See ya.